Yok, girme. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to those in Turkey and Europe. Today we are discussing the new Turkish foreign policy in this post-election era in Turkey. As you all know, the Turkish cabinet has changed. The foreign minister is a different person now. Hakan Fidan, who was the chief of intelligence in Turkey, he is now the foreign minister. Former chief advisor to the president and his spokesperson replaced him in the National Intelligence Agency. And there are many other changes in the cabinet, of course. There are key changes in the economy as well, economic sphere. But today we are discussing the foreign policy. So Erdogan won with a comfortable margin in the presidential elections. He set up his cabinet, and there are many sort of discussions, debates about how Turkish foreign policy is going to proceed with respect to, of course, NATO enlargement, Middle East issues, the war in Ukraine. There are developments in Central Asia, all around Turkey. There are many pressing issues in foreign policy sphere. So we wanted to discuss these and try to, I guess, play a guessing game about what might happen in the near future and the medium term. Professor Duran is joining us from Ankara. He is the head of SETA, general coordinator of SETA Foundation. And my colleague Kilic Kanat is joining us from Washington, D.C. He's our research director at SETA Washington. Professor Duran, we'll start with you again. As you know, we've had several discussions about elections, election dynamics, internal dynamics. That's kind of now behind us. There are still, of course, reverberations of those dynamics, what's going to happen in the opposition, etc. But again, as I said at the beginning, we'll focus on foreign policy today. What are your expectations? There's a new foreign minister. How is Turkish foreign policy going to proceed in the next few months?
Thank you, Kadir. Well, as you know, the most critical elections of the 2023 was on Turkey, and it's over now. But of course, while we are discussing the foreign policy perspective of the new cabinet under President Erdogan, in Turkey, some people from opposition are talking about the reasons for the failure of the opposition and what could be the change in the leadership of CHP. And these are the local and national issues that still the opposition are talking about. But of course, from the capitals of the world, people are just asking this question: is there will be a continuity or change under the new cabinet of President Erdogan? Of course, there are some new people to that cabinet, and actually, the winning side has completely changed the cabinet, the ministers, with two exceptions, with the Minister of Tourism and Minister of Health. And these are the new people, but at the same time, they are, of course, they have the expertise for their related ministries. So, but on the side of the opposition, still there is a discussion of change and others, and really assessing the reasons for that failure of election. For Turkish foreign policy, I will see much more continuity rather than change. And it is written actually in the election booklet that President Erdogan will continue to a policy of Turkey access in the new term. And what is this? Well, actually, it is a policy of, it's a vision, it's a doctrine of Erdogan that aims to have an environment, neighborhood and regional environment peaceful regional environment, and much more collaboration for security and economic prosperity. And also, there is another dimension to that vision, to that doctrine, is the continuation of the Turkey's openings to other continents, including Asia and Latin America and Africa. And maybe uh, the third condition is the still to try to have a better and fairer world order. And these are the major, actually, pillars of the doctrine. And what could be the new foreign policy for President Erdogan? Actually, we can answer these questions by just looking at the Erdogan's statements in the visit to northern Cyprus and Azerbaijan. Actually, I was one of them that joined this visit as journalists, and we asked several questions to President Erdogan in the way to Turkey, and he answered these questions, and he outlined the main parameters of Turkey's foreign policy in the new term. I can summarize some of them of course, with quickly. Well, one is about the NATO membership of Sweden. And President Erdogan said that, well, there can be a new law about fighting with terror in Sweden, but we expect some concrete results. While PKK terrorists are demonstrating in the streets of Sweden, it is not enough for us to say yes, okay, to NATO membership. And in July, Vilnius summit, our position will be like that. And again, he stated the great relationship, strategic relationship between Turkey and Azerbaijan. And this is actually a door to more integration with the Turkic world. And also he criticized Iran as an obstacle to this Zengezur corridor, opening of Zengezur corridor. And he criticized Iran. That was very striking. But at the same time, he offered some concrete collaboration item, that there will be much more collaboration among Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Iran, if of course, if Iran acts in that way, in a positive way. So about Greece and southern Cyprus, I saw some sympathy in President's remarks towards these two countries. President Erdogan was very eager to talk to Prime Minister Mitsotakis, and also with the condition that if the equal sovereignty rights of Cyprus Turks are accepted, this could be there could be some negotiations. And also, I should add that Turkey's relations with the EU, and that there were two sentences that were critical of the EU because of because they didn't keep their promise in the case of Annan Plan, and they accepted southern Cyprus on the contrary to the agreement. And so this was an obstacle to the unification of Cyprus, actually. So he criticized this case, and he said that we are just on the door of European Union for the last 50 years, and this could not be continued in that way. This is an issue that we can bring to the table. Well, of course, there were other issues, but these are the very significant subjects that Erdogan addressed in his visit. in his return from Azerbaijan. So, as a conclusion, I expect that Turkey will continue to foster some cooperation and normalization in her around regions. That means there will be a determined diplomacy, activism to have much more cooperative bilateral relations. But at the same time, Turkey will keep her strategic autonomy if that is related to Turkey's strategic interests. One last sentence about the East and West. You know, Turkey is sometimes criticized for being so much distanced from the West, or being very close to Russia, or to the East. And I saw that President Erdogan doesn't have such a East-West dichotomy. He wants to have good relations both with the West and the East. Of course, Turkey is a part of the Western alliance, but at the same time, Turkey will keep its neutral and balanced approach to Russia and Ukraine. These are sometimes it's not easy to bring these two issues together, but still Turkey regards this issue as something very important, and of course this will continue to be a major part of Turkey's foreign policy in the next 5 years.
Thank you, Burhanettin Hocam, especially for sharing your impressions from your President Erdogan's first forum visit after the elections. I think those are valuable remarks you made. And based off of those, Kilic, what are your expectations, especially with regard to NATO enlargement? Sweden is hot topic these days. President Biden, in his congratulatory call with Erdogan, in the readout, they mentioned this membership issue, and Blinken, Secretary of State Blinken, also mentioned this after his call with the new Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan. That seems to be the hot item. The NATO secretary was in Turkey. He might still be there. I'm not sure today, but he's been having meetings and he's been pushing this. There was a meeting of the trilateral, meeting based on the trilateral agreement between Finland, Sweden, Turkey. Anyway, so what are your expectations about this NATO enlargement issue? I think your mic is on mute, Kilic. Thank you.
So thank you very much. And I think this question about Turkey's position on Sweden, it kind of reminds me the Turkey's position on YPG. So from the very beginning, Turkey's position was very clear that this is a part of a terrorist organization, Syria branch of a terrorist organization, and any cooperation with this organization would be radioactive with Turkey's relations with the other country. And Turkey's position on Sweden is similar. Turkey's position on Sweden's NATO membership is conditions in regards to PKK and some other terrorist organizations. And Turkey wanted Sweden to take concrete actions about that. And last year in Madrid, during the NATO summit, when the leaders of 3 countries met, this was an understanding that was signed by all of these countries. And it would be, I think, unnecessary to repeat this question, especially if you are a Turkey observer and if you observe the last election, and if you see that the PKK issue, how important PKK issue is for Turkish public, and how Turkish public predominantly supports, with a very great majority, supports the fight against terrorism, and they have a very negative reaction to anybody who doesn't totally condemn terrorism. And if you understand this sensitivity, you can understand that Turkey's position would be similar to the position that Turkey basically put forward immediately after Sweden's membership application for NATO. And it would be unwise, I guess, to try to pressure Turkey without Sweden taking those necessary steps. Because in multiple different instances, the Turkish foreign policy makers stated that they support an open door policy for NATO, and they support the membership of any country. But there should be some conditions, since this is a security alliance. If one of the candidate countries are doing something or allowing something, turning blind eye for the activities of a group that constitutes a significant security threat to one of the members, this is very much against the spirit of the alliance itself. So I think trying to pressure Turkey, trying to make this process as quick as possible, because this we have never seen during the NATO's enlargement in recent years. We have never seen a membership process that is completed in one year, or that is kind of tried to be prematurely put forward to the table by some of the member countries. I think Turkey's position about this will not change. And it all depends, the ball is in Sweden's court, and it all depends on Sweden to take these necessary steps. And then after completing those conditionalities, Turkey will, of course, allow NATO, just like Turkey did for Finland, to accept Sweden as a member country. I think this is the gist of the things. And I find it very unuseful to continuously discuss this issue and to try to find another solution, because I think this is quite straightforward. All of the international organization for the membership needs to have some conditionalities and eligibility requirements, and especially if it's a security alliance, to show solidarity, to show support for the fight against terror of another member country for that organization, naturally should be part of this eligibility criteria for the organization. That's for the Sweden thing. So I stopped talking about Sweden's issue a long time ago, because I understand that this conversation will not bring us anywhere unless Sweden took concrete steps. And in regards to Turkish foreign policy, I think we will see a lot of continuities in Turkish foreign policy, especially in the last 2 years. Turkish foreign policy was trying to be more proactive again in the region and use diplomatic statecraft more efficiently to resolve conflicts, to bring the parties in the region that has significant problems together. And I think this trend will continue. But if I can summarize 3 major steps, I think in regards to regional conflicts, I think we will see 2 different processes. Number one, we will see that Turkey will try to play a more active role both in Ukraine war and in Syria to end the conflicts. And the grain deal, the renewal of the grain deal was, I think, the first step. But as you may remember, just immediately after the beginning of the hostilities in the region, Turkey brought the foreign ministers of Ukraine and Russia in Antalya together. And then the parties came to Istanbul to negotiate an agreement. And this facilitating role that Turkey has been playing will continue. I think we can also expect a similar process in Syria. And in Syria as well, Turkey will try to mitigate some of the issues and crises in the country. And in regards to conflicts that ended both in Azerbaijan and Eastern Mediterranean, I think Turkey will try, basically it didn't end, but it didn't turn into a full, in Azerbaijan, the conflict ended, and in Eastern Mediterranean, the crisis was still going on. in both of those crises, I think Turkey will try to play a role in Azerbaijan and Armenia to reconcile the disputes. It was very meaningful for Armenian Prime Minister to come to Turkey during President Erdogan's ceremony 2 weeks ago, together with Ilham Aliyev, of course. So Turkey will continue to play a role to reconcile the differences of these parties. And we have seen that in Eastern Mediterranean as well, just as Professor Duran mentioned, Turkey will try to play a more active role to end the conflicts and, of course, end the disputes. And it all depends on the response that Turkey's president will get from Greece and Cyprus and Greece. So this is I think for the region this will be key. In regards to global politics, I think Turkey will have two priorities. Number one will be to follow a policy of reforming international organization. This has been going on. President Erdogan repeated this in every speech that he delivered in UN General Assembly for the last 7 years, that UN Security Council needs to be reformed. And together with UN Security Council, all of the international organizations needs to revise some of their structure or some of their functions so that they can efficiently fight against some of the global crises. I think this policy will continue in the next 5 years of Erdogan administration, and he will continue to push forward for UN Security Council reform. And actually, initially, this was when President Erdogan stated this was also supported by some of the countries who has been looking for a reform of the UN Security Council for a long period of time. But last year, we have seen that even President Biden mentioned that it's time to talk about this reform process, and Turkey will push forward for this process as again. And of course, secondly, with the beginning of a new great power rivalry, Turkey doesn't want to be harmed by this rivalry, or Turkey doesn't want the region, especially the very vulnerable to any kind of external crisis. We are talking about the Middle East, to be influenced by that. So Turkey will try to initiate with the other middle powers a program and platform to basically stabilize international order and to try to mitigate the influence of great power rivalry between United States and China to other regions. And in regards to the domestic politics, foreign policy nexus, we can say that Turkey will, because of the current economic challenges that Turkey is facing, together with diplomatic statecraft that Turkey has been following, we can expect that Turkey will follow an economic statecraft as well. And in relation with other countries, Turkey will make economic agenda as a priority as well. Increasing trade volume is just part of that. Try to be part of the supply chain shifts in the world is part of that. And try to attract more foreign direct investment to Turkey will be part of that. So we can expect, in addition to diplomatic statecraft, a more economically based foreign policy. And finally, in regards to public opinion, Turkish public opinion is, unlike some of the other countries and Turkey's allies, Turkey's public opinion is very much attentive to foreign policy. And especially in some issues, they have very strong opinions. And I think Turkish government in the next 5 years try to hear more actively. They have been hearing the voice of the public opinion, but try to be more in tune with the public opinions, requests and demands in regards to foreign policy. And there will be, we may expect a more foreign policy, domestic policy, politics nexus in the next couple of years. Of course, in regards to global challenges like climate change, the technology warfare, chip warfare, that microchip warfare that we have been seeing, Turkey will try to prepare itself for this new era where many people are expecting technology is going to be one of the most significant instruments of great power rivalry. We have seen Turkey has been preparing that in terms of defense industry, in terms of strengthening its industrial and technology base, in terms of support, providing more support for research and development in the country. So we can expect this process to continue in the next 5 years.
Thank you, Kilic. Hocam, Kilic talked about Ukraine, UN reform, great power rivalry. There are major challenges. Before maybe moving on to some of them, I want to ask you about the new foreign minister, because he's been there as the head of Turkish intelligence for 13 years. And during that time, he has gone through major upheavals in the region, entire Arab Spring process. He was there. He survived a coup attempt in Turkey in 2016. He was probably critical in the sort of failure of that attempt. We obviously don't know what the details might be, but what I'm trying to say is that you both Kilic and you discussed the continuity, Erdogan's foreign policy, and things that will kind of propel Turkey forward in terms of national interest and how it's going to, evolve. There's a lot of emphasis on continuity. What could be the areas of kind of change, is even if it's in terms of style, in terms of the personality of the new foreign minister, how he approaches issues, maybe? Are you able to maybe speculate on how it might impact Turkish foreign policy outlook and how it's perceived abroad? Please, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Kadir, before my personal opinions on the possible influence of Hakan Fidan as the new foreign minister, I should repeat some realities for Turkey's foreign policy. This is the great influence of President Erdogan. Actually, for the last years, I should say for the last 10 years, President Erdogan is actively running foreign policy at different levels and in different cases. So this is an integrated policy approach, and including economy, foreign policy, security policies, and even domestic politics. President Erdogan is conducting this art of ruling Turkey by closing all the different aspects of politics. So this is something to be addressed first. And the second one is, of course, the expertise of the new foreign minister. The chief diplomat, Hakan Fidan, is well equipped with the critical specific dossiers. I mean, as the head of intelligence, he was very active in realizing Turkey's foreign policy objectives. And even in the process of normalization in the Middle Eastern countries, including Saudi Arabia, the Emiratis, Israel, and even including Syria, he was very active. And of course, he was very active in Turkey's struggle with terrorist groups, including PKK, Daesh, and FETÖ. So he accumulated a kind of expertise that covers both diplomacy and some hard policy choices. So this brings so much influence and power to his analysis and his strategic thinking and formulating new policies. So some people are arguing that with Hakan Fidan, Turkey would follow much more security-oriented policies. I cannot agree with that perspective, because this kind of thinking is underestimating Hakan Fidan's abilities of diplomacy. So I expect that there will be a much more determined foreign policy conduct of trying to have Turkish vision, Turkey's long-term policy objectives realized. So this will bring a new vigor, a new energy to diplomacy, and also strategic thinking, and some new initiatives, some new openings, including new openings. And this is what I expect from Fidan's foreign ministry. And he will empower his ministry in just following the critical issues within the policymaking process of Turkey. But again, I will finish my words with the emphasis that President Erdogan is very active in bringing together different parts of the cabinet, different parts of bureaucracy's views on foreign policy, and making some critical decisions. So let's see what will be the merge and synthesis of a strong leader, a strong president, and so much expertise of a new foreign minister and his strategic thinking.
Kilic, let me ask you a similar question, but with respect to developments in the Middle East. Turkey went through a period of really strong estrangement from a number of countries in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and then past 2 years, 1.5 years, I guess, there's been a process of normalization, and both processes, right? This new foreign minister Fidan was intimately involved, and he was actually probably conducting some behind-the-scenes diplomacy as well. And so how do you think in the new era of normalization and improving relations with the Gulf, with Egypt, with Israel, others, given, for instance, President Erdogan's criticism of Iran about the corridor in Azerbaijan, how do you think that might have an influence and impact on Middle East affairs in Turkish foreign policy? Because this is a well-known character in the Middle East.
So there are a couple of things, I guess. Number one is for the last at least 3 years, 4 years, during the normalization process with some of the countries in Turkish foreign policy's normalization period in terms of relations with other countries, Hakan Fidan has been the key player, and actually it was stated multiple times by President himself, both in regards to Egypt, in regards to Israel. When there was very low diplomatic relation, President Erdogan mentioned that his intelligence chief is meeting with his counterparts in those countries. And I think Hakan Fidan played a significant role in shaping these normalization process. So in this new period, as the foreign minister and as the chief diplomat of Turkey, he will probably continue this process. This process has been President Erdogan's policy, and both with the foreign minister who has been negotiating most of the things behind the scene, the process will continue in the Middle East. And in regards to Iran, and this is again something that Turkey has been stating, President Erdogan has been stating in multiple different instances by using multiple different discourse and labels about the influence of Iran, not only in the Zenzegor corridor, Azerbaijan or Armenia conflict, but in Syria, in Iraq as well. I think Turkey and Iran, as two major geopolitical powers in the region, will have meetings, will have negotiations, will have some important summits in the next few months, I'm assuming, to handle these issues, because Turkey has been so far warning this influence of Iran in the Middle East, but we started to see now in Caucasia as well. And I think President Erdogan's statement to the journalist during his trip back from Baku was quite straightforward and quite powerful in that sense. So this is a pattern when President Erdogan is going to initiate a policy, and this has been the pattern of Turkish foreign policy for the last 20 years. It's very open. Turkey usually says what it's going to take. If it's going to take an action, Turkey will say it quite straightforward from the very beginning, and then usually walk the talk and implement those actions. So we can expect a period of hot diplomacy with Iran in regards to these critical issue areas.
Thank you, Kilic. So, Burhanettin Hocam, I want to return to that question about Ukraine. These days, Zelensky has started, Ukrainian army has started a counteroffensive. It's a major one. It is, of course, going slowly, but in many ways, observers think that this is kind of a test in the sense that Ukrainians have to deliver some success for the Western support to continue and increase, perhaps. And now, Biden decided that F-16s could be delivered to Ukraine. That kind of brings Ukraine much closer to NATO, and Zelensky wants a clear roadmap about Ukrainian membership in NATO. I don't want to go back to the NATO enlargement discussion about Sweden, but, Turkey's approach has been kind of supportive of the open door policy. How do you think Turkey would approach Ukraine's potential membership down the road, given the dynamics with Russia and Ukraine? And do you expect, if, let's say, the Ukrainian army were able to make some gains, do you expect any changes in Turkish foreign policy regarding that?
Well, starting with the membership of Ukraine to NATO, Kadir, I should say that a country under occupation, a country at war with Russia, doesn't seem that this country, Ukraine, would be accepted as member to the Union.
Just to clarify, Zelensky recognizes that, but he says he wants a clear roadmap, right, about what after the war, somehow some sort of peace agreement, or even without a peace agreement, if there's some sort of armistice, if the fighting ends at some point, and then Ukraine should be given a clear roadmap about membership. He doesn't, he sees that not being realistic right now, being at war. But even with that, I think what you said is valid from the Turkish perspective. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, okay. If that is thought as a kind of security assurance, Turkey is positive in providing some kind of security assurance to Ukraine after the peace, of course. But without a workable peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia, it seems that this discussion over the Ukraine membership to NATO could not be realized concretely. But to discuss it as a way of making security assurance to Ukraine, it is valuable, and Turkey will think about it. But the war between Ukraine and Russia is still a war of attrition. I mean, both sides, Ukraine and Russia, are suffering very much from this war. And it seems that uh, the US and European countries are ready to provide new materials, new arms, including F-16, to Ukraine to further to continue this war. And at the same time, we hear from Russian President Putin that we have been deceived by the West in this grain deal, so we can cancel it. We will withdraw from this deal. While it is something alarming because the Russian products also were supposed to be transferred from this corridor by this deal, of course, but that didn't happen, and now the war in Ukraine is still a very alarming case for the peace, and this in this part of the war, I expect that after the elections, President Erdogan will take a lead and try to make some initiatives. And we hear some news that Russian president can come to Turkey, or President Erdogan maybe would have some visit or calls with the President Putin. So there is a need of diplomatic activism in dealing with this war. Well, of course, before the NATO summit in Vilnius, this kind of diplomatic activism would be something very valuable, not just for Turkey, but also for the European security and for the course of the war. Yes, there can be some Ukrainian counteroffensive to take some parts of their lands, but at the same time, this would trigger much more, escalation in the war. So I'm sure that this war will not be easily ended. So there will be much more diplomatic negotiations, and Turkey is trying to initiate this in a kind of trigger in this kind of diplomatic negotiations. But unfortunately, on the side of the US and Europe, there is no such intention and an aim to make these negotiations possible. Well, for the course of the war now, I don't expect that there will be a significant step, concrete significant step, that the Ukraine would be accepted as the new member. Yes, there can be a discussion over the roadmap, but still, it would be a discussion.
Thank you, Professor Duran. I know both of you have very busy schedules, especially today, and we are at the end of our time. We've tried to discuss Turkish foreign policy after the presidential elections. What I'm getting from both of you is that there will be much continuity in the Turkish foreign policy, and there will be some changes, obviously, with the new foreign minister, who is a very experienced and capable personality who has been involved in Turkish foreign policy for a long time, more than a decade. And you both identified Turkey's, clarified Turkey's position about NATO enlargement, Sweden's membership, as well as potential Ukraine membership down the road, and pointed out some of the major challenges ahead. So we are going to obviously continue to discuss these issues, hopefully more in detail. We wanted to kind of give this overall evaluation today about Turkish foreign policy. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us, Kilic and Burhanettin Hocam. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.